Okay. Did you guys have a good weekend?
Yeah, it's been pretty chill. Um, Pretty chill. I am transitioning to from a trainee to an employee with my new job, so everything's going great with that. So
Good.
yeah. Hmm.
I
I
got to
I
go on
used
a
to
hike with
enjoy
friends.
Memorial Day just I'm sorry, Caleb, what?
Oh, sorry. I got to go on a hike with friends. Also, I hope my volume's okay.
It was really low at the beginning. It is getting better.
Okay, cool. Because I can adjust the gain on my mic.
Okay. I think right now it's pretty good.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. Anyway.
Well, I have my youngest from my second marriage joined the military
Hmm.
last year, and that's really interesting because since they were from another country, she needed to be vetted by the FBI before joining the military.
Hmm.
And she was so dedicated. So, a second marriage that ended in divorce, the FBI agent was really confused as to why I would support my daughter, from this marriage getting into the military. And
Hmm.
he was really surprised because I can't say enough good things about her. She's just really a powerfully decent person. And whenever I think of Memorial Day, I think of things like that. Memorial Day was started after the end of the Civil War, when the only people that stayed in Charleston as the South left it, as the South Armed
Hmm.
Forces left it, were the freed slaves, so Black Americans, and
Hmm.
volunteer doctors. It was filled with disease, and these freed slaves went to this mass grave that the Dixie military had just left. All their
Hmm.
prisoners they just dumped in a pit, and they went through, cleaned up the bodies, gave them uh, a dignified burial, and that was
Hmm.
really the start of Memorial Day. And it's not a glorification of military prowess. It's meant to be a time where we remember the people that were happy, that were not necessarily happy, but the people that volunteered to stand in between danger and families that they never met,
Hmm. Yeah.
and which I think is just amazing. And um, my grandpa, uh,
Hmm.
you guys probably have never heard of this, but southeastern Washington at the end of the World War II was an arm of the
Hmm.
Manhattan Project. There were three nuclear power plants, or three atomic power plants at the time, there that were uh, rarefying the metals, plutonium and uranium, for use in the atomic bomb.
Hmm.
Japanese had caught wind of this at the end of 1943, and people have said like 9/11 was the first attack on U.S. soil. Well, it's not. It's about the seventh. And at the
Hmm.
end of World War II, Japanese sent high altitude firebombs aiming at this site, and they knew the U.S. could pick up electronic signals with their radar equipment. So they did everything super, super low tech, but it ended up in firebombs blanketing southeastern Washington, western Idaho, and northeastern Oregon. You guys had never heard of this. The 555th Paratrooper Squad, they were trained alongside the men that went to the D-Day invasion. But since they were Black Americans, Eisenhower was told by his generals that they did not want these Black Americans helping with D-Day,
Hmm.
and which Eisenhower thought was ridiculous, but it is what it is. And so he stationed them at arguably one of the most important sites in the world at that time, which was protect the Manhattan Project. And these guys, all black paratrooper squad unit. I don't know if it was like 150 men, something like that. It was a lot of people, but they were daily risking their lives fighting fires that the Japanese had started with whatever they could find. So some of and it was forest fires throughout the whole area. They saved countless lives. And my grandpa was stationed there as a procreations agent, a white man from Utah. And he was racist when he got there. But the entire end of World War II, he was eating dinner with these black gentlemen in the 555th. And my mom, who was a little girl at the time, remembered being awestruck by these men that were just such good people. And my grandpa completely trusted them around his wife and his daughter because he knew that they were honorable men. And it completely changed his worldview. And so when I think of Memorial Day, I think of those kinds of stories. And
Yeah.
I just think it's pretty amazing.
Hmm.
Anyway, so I hope you guys had a good holiday.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do today, and Caleb and Mandy, if you guys have questions, please hit me with
Hmm.
them. I wanted to go over the artist research projects that we have,
Hmm.
specifically the annotated bibliography. And I wanted to go over, um, look at the wire. We have 2 wire things that people submitted. They aren't due until Sunday, but I want to show people that. And
Hmm.
then I also want to look at the house photos from, and both of these from the discussion board. So, stuff that
Hmm.
everybody's seen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if that's all right with you guys, anything different? Or
Um.
does that sound good?
Yeah. It's all good.
Okay.
Mhm.
That should be all right.
I appreciate all that dripping confidence in your voice, Caleb. Thank
Yeah.
you. That makes me feel so much better.
Of course. I'm
Yeah.
full of confidence. You can't see it, but I flipped my hair in the background.
Okay. Now, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to look first at the annotated bibliography.
Okay.
And so far, out of everybody in this class, only one person has yet to declare if they're doing artist research or service learning. And this is the first semester where everybody's decided to do artist research, which is totally
Mhm.
fine. You have that option, but everybody's so far has decided to do that. The one
Mhm.
remaining person who hasn't declared, as soon as you do, you get 3 or 4 assignments are going to disappear from your queue. So
Mhm.
just so you know. All right, here we go. All right. So the annotated bibliography needs to be, if you guys remember, the first assignment that you had in this kind of realm was the artist list. And the first
Mhm.
you had, if you're doing the artist research option, is uh, picking the artist and declaring it to the class. So this
Mhm.
artist a person picks, in this case, Sandy Skoglund, should be the same artist that this individual had picked in the very
Mhm.
in that first of those assignments, which was put the artist on the discussion board. And for this assignment, what you need to do is find 5 uh, sources
Mhm.
and preferably different kinds of sources. So things like interviews, YouTube videos, uh, museum catalogs, stuff like that. 5 sources that directly relate to the chosen artist, and then you need to write 2 reflect articles. I'm sorry, paragraphs. The first pair of the 2 paragraphs will be one that talks about a summary of what is in that citation, and the second paragraph will be your reflection on the information. And there's some things that are really, I believe, I gave you a list of I think 8 or 9 sources that you can go to that will help you generate the MLA format citation. And even though that does a pretty good job, you still need to double check because it's an AI program. It will only do what you ask it to do. And one of the things that you need to double check is make sure that the punctuation is correct. Make sure that it's formatted the author names correctly, and make sure that you have, and this is something that you usually need to add yourself, the accessed on date at the end of each of the citations. So for the annotated bibliography, all 5 citations need to directly relate to the artist you chose. And even though you're using an AI program to help you, you need a double check. Trust but verify is a really intelligent phrase that government, military, business, all these people use, which I think is really valid. I think AI is a remarkable tool, but it is a tool and it does not replace your thinking. So double check those things. From what I see, this looks like a really good citation. The only thing that concerns me a little bit is right here. Brian K. Mahoney is twice. I have seen articles that are written by 2 people with the same name, but my suspicion is that the fields that the AI looked at were different, and the author's name was put in twice in those fields. And so this person, that is something where I would probably take out this. I would want them to double check and most likely remove the second name. One of the reasons why it's important to do this all is, say, for example, if the author was a doctor and then last name, what a lot of the times the AI will say last name, comma, then doctor, when the proper citation should be, um, actually, that's not, yeah, it should probably be the salutation first, doctor, last name, and then that should be the whole thing. But and you can always double check. Go to an MLA site and look it up and see about that. But there are MLA format sites that will tell you exactly the order to put things in. This is pretty safe, where you have the last name and the first name. And sometimes, if there are salutations, it doesn't hurt to double check, because I have seen um, the last name, comma, and then salutation and first name. And I've also seen the salutation first. So just double check and things like that. And most of you aren't going to have to deal with that. But I'm just saying, be aware of those kinds of things. Notice that on this, you have a period after the author, you have a period after the title, and then you have a period after the publication information. After that last period, that's where you put the accessed on date. Do you guys know why the accessed on date is important when you're doing an online citation?
Um, it's important for the work log, right? Or
That, it's not necessarily related to the work log at all,
okay,
but
just
that's a good
saying.
guess. I'm going to go back in time and tell you guys a little bit of a story. Have you heard of a guy named Richard Hoagland?
I'm not.
No.
What? Uh, every educated person should know who Richard Hoagland is, and I'm just kind of joking. Richard Hoagland was a scientific journalist way back in the 80s and 90s. And one of the things he did was he had an uncanny knack for talking to government officials and NASA officials, sift through all the scientific jargon, and then write an article that anybody could understand. I mean, I loved reading his stuff as a little kid because he wrote it so I could understand it. It wasn't designed to make me feel stupid. When NASA started cataloging their photographs from the different space missions and launching missions to the moon, one of the things he started noticing is that he was hearing from people that were talking about the airbrush room where they were removing alien artifacts from the moonshot photos and all this kind of stuff. And he thought, this is just a bunch of nonsense. And then when NASA started putting them on the internet, by that time he had enough people that were so intrigued by this kind of thing that as soon as NASA would put out photos, they would take screenshots of those photos and they would just pour over them and see if they could find any of this alien, so-called alien technology airbrushed out or anything like that. And he said that as they were doing this, what he found out was that NASA would release a photo, and then maybe sometimes as quickly as 12 hours later, they would re-release or re-upload the photo to the exact same website address. So you think you were getting the old shot, but it would be updated. And at that point, the little thing that they thought was so intriguing had been airbrushed out.
Hmm.
Enter the Wayback Machine or archive.net. I believe it's archive.net or archive.org. What they
.org.
do, or .org, what
Yeah.
they do is you can plug in the date and time of any moment on the internet, and it will show you exactly what that address looked like at that moment.
A Wayback
And
Machine.
what's that?
The Wayback Machine, right?
Yeah, yeah, the Wayback Machine. And I believe that there's six of them, but the two most popular are the Archive and the Wayback Machine, and I think that they are actually linked now. But and people like Richard Hoagland were intrigued by this because they could actually prove, and he was able to prove that NASA, who is supposed to be directly answerable to the U.S. taxpayer, was actually misrepresenting its website presence. Because all those photos, all of us as taxpayers have access to those photos and should at any moment. And he was actually able to get NASA to acknowledge the fact that they had screwed around with some of the photos.
Hmm.
It didn't go anywhere. It didn't prove aliens because they said something about U.S. military security concerns, and so nobody talks about it anymore. Which is really kind of interesting considering the Tic Tac video, if you saw that, or the most recent release of um, cool alien tech files and stuff like that. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the point of it is, 30 years from now, you will be able to introduce your work to another generation. And regardless of what happens with the internet, if they go back and look at those sites on that time that you say you saw it, they'll be able to see exactly what you saw. And that's really vital because, especially with ongoing marketing restructuring that we see all the time, sometimes sites are restructured several times a week. If you want to stay active in the app development space, you have to update your apps constantly. And a lot of the times I have to go back and redo the links I have in the web and the Canvas pages because like the Met Museum will update its website and make things, easier to find. And I have to go back and refine it again. But that is why the access on date is so important for these citations, because then it shows exactly when you looked it up. And the reason why you have citations in the first place is so that anybody who's following your research can find exactly what you found. If you are using like physical books and physical magazines, you do not need this. But most of the stuff I do, most of the research I do is online anymore. Even at the library, I'm doing it online. Anyway, so that's why we need that accessed on date. And whatever format you
Mhm.
do for this, or um, if you have commas in the date or anything like that, it doesn't matter. Make sure that they are the same in all five of the citations. And looking at this looks pretty good. The only thing that concerns me is the very first one where we have the same name repeated. And I would just ask the person just to verify that there's only one author, or verify that there are actually two authors with the exact same name. Let's see. So I'm scrolling down. So when you alphabetize, one of the things that frustrates me a little bit is AI does not know how to alphabetize correctly in this kind of a format. And this person did a beautiful job. It looks like there's just two tech things that need to be fixed. And one of them is to verify the alphabetization. In this case, you alphabetize by going through the first phrase and lining up the very first word of the phrase. And if that's the same, the second word of that first phrase. And if that's the same, you go to the punctuation point, and then you alphabetize by the first letter of the next phrase. And I'll demonstrate what this is. So these two, they're both authors. M comes before R. So this is good. Right here, though, we see this is Sandy Scugland, and that's since this does not have a listed author, the title is the first thing that is alphabetized. And then down here we have Sandy Scugland as well. And AI likes to put this after this when it should be the other way around. And the reason why it should be the other way around is this is one long phrase right here that just happens to share two words at the beginning with this short phrase. And when we're alphabetizing, this short phrase that ends with Sandy Scugland, period, always comes before the same two words plus something else. Does that make sense to you guys? So, I think this is a really good, well done, um, annotated bibliography. They did everything just beautiful. The only thing we need to work on is that alphabetization and double checking the very first, excuse me, double checking that very first author articulation. Now, when you're doing your research, I mentioned this a little bit, I believe, in the assignment. One thing we got to safeguard against is not safeguard against necessarily. I think that's the wrong phrase. Be aware of is authorship bias. And there's a number of these, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's something we need to be aware of. One of the things that really frustrates me is, especially in a world of hyper interconnectivity, you get somebody writing an article somewhere that somebody else will take that information, juggle the paragraphs around, and then publish it again. And if they don't put their own name on it, and or say independent, they can get away with it, and it's not that big of a deal for people to chase down. What that means is, um, several years ago, I got really excited because an Egyptian newspaper published an article about my work, and I thought that was so cool. And over the next couple of weeks, from Syria to Jordan and Iraq, all these other newspapers were publishing articles about me, and I thought, oh, that is so cool. And then when I looked back and actually pulled up the articles and started comparing them, some of them were the exact same article, just published with a different newspaper who had bought the article from the first person. And some of them, somebody else had just taken it and moved the paragraphs around, so it was the same information. And that kind of reuse is something that we've got to watch out for, especially if we're trying to find a number of citations on one artist. They need to be different and they need to be unique. So that's something just to be aware of. Another bias is, and I don't know if that really fits comfortably under the umbrella of bias, but it is something to be aware of. Uh, Different publications will reuse different stories. And the way that they do it, they can step around copyright issues, and sometimes the first publisher doesn't care about copyright. And that's sometimes you'll see authorless stuff in blogs, and they don't care if you reuse it, and so some people do. But that's something to be aware of. And one thing that I see sometimes is, particularly uh, news agencies will take an interview, and they will show different segments of the interview on their YouTube channel. And because one agency has shown the same interview but cut off 3 seconds here and added 3 seconds there, then it's unique to their station, or they put music behind it or something like that. And I think that falls under that same kind of umbrella, just being aware of the reuse factor in these publications. But there's also uh, perspective bias. Uh, do you guys know who Greenpeace is, or the
Yes, a
Sierra
little bit.
Club? Okay, very environmentally conscious group. And then you guys have heard of BP Oil, British Petroleum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. if British Petroleum and Greenpeace both covered something like, say, for example, a forest fire around a pipeline in Alaska, do you think they're going to be talking about it differently?
Absolutely.
Why?
Probably.
Depending on the interests of the organization. For example, if an oil company wants to make sure that oil is still being used, they're going to um, highlight benefits of oil rather than the negative effects of it. Whereas Greenpeace is a little more likely to highlight the negative effects compared to the oil company.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. A lot of the times this doesn't impact us a lot with regarding artists unless they've gotten some sort of reputation for being controversial at all. But as you're doing your article, and Caleb, that's exactly right. Um, as you're doing your articles, looking up your research for this, be aware because you are going to get different information from a site where they make their money selling the artist's work, and than you are from a site where, like Art21, that just finds interesting artists and tries to interview them during their process. You know, the two things are going to be very similar because Artist 21 is trying to introduce you to the art, and say, for example, the gallery website is trying to sell you on the art. Like a Met Museum is going to present something differently than, if they show some of the images of Frida Kahlo's paintings, they're going to present it differently than the Frida Kahlo Foundation that celebrates her paintings. That's the only thing they have on their site. So be aware of that. And one of the things that I do like is I think it's Wiki Art. They do a pretty decent job for the most part of showing artists, giving you context for the artist and talking about their stuff from their perspective, as opposed to if you go to, say, for example, an online religious university that hates Egon Schiele's paintings because he shows naked people, they're going to present things differently. So just be aware of that kind of a thing. But sometimes that can work for your benefit because if I'm doing a report on Frida Kahlo, I definitely want to look up her foundation's website in addition to other national galleries and stuff. And it would be even fun to find if I could find a video from a seventh grader whose life was changed because she found Frida Kahlo's paintings and was just felt self-empowered. That kind of a mix is a fun mix. And then there's also the tail chasing bias. Tail chasing bias is, have you guys heard about MSG and how nasty it is for you?
Yep.
Are
Yeah,
you
I've
aware
definitely
that
heard of
that
that come up.
are you aware that that is a just a developed fiction?
Mm-hmm.
Way back in the 90s, there was somebody in a medical journal that wrote a letter to the editor in which they said something along the lines of, I found when I go to some of these Asian restaurants that have MSG in their food for the next couple of days, I have these symptoms that just make me feel really nasty and bloated. And somebody on a slow news day in New York saw that and thought, hey, I'm going to turn this into something. And they quoted from that article and cited it as being from a medical journal telling us that MSG is bad for you, when originally it was just somebody's opinion. Now, if you're like me and you go to a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, that's one of the food types that I absolutely love, and I always eat too much. So I'm feeling bloated because I'm an idiot and I eat too much. It has nothing to do with what they put in the food.
Yeah.
Because, and to date, there still has not been a verified, peer-reviewed study declaring to the world that MSG is so nasty for you, you should avoid eating it at all costs. But everybody believes that. And that's an example of tail chasing because um, people were chasing this kind of fake story around. A better example was this is one of the controversies around Wikimedia or Wikipedia. Wikimedia is okay. Wikipedia, I do not like it when people quote from any. I won't accept any citation that involves Wikipedia. However, Wikipedia is really good to go to because you can go scroll all the way down to the bottom and you'll see their citations. Why would I not like Wikipedia as a primary source for you guys to cite?
I've heard in the past that Wikipedia can be edited by people, and it's also not a very good, like, reliable source because of that. Because people can make stuff up on
Yeah,
the thing, and that's not real
anybody can
about
edit
it.
it.
So, mhm,
You're absolutely right.
Mhm.
There is no
mhm,
gatekeeping, and that's what it comes down to.
Another thing
mhm.
I feel as well is Wikipedia isn't a primary source, whereas the references often are primary sources.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and I think both of those you guys have hit the nail on the head. With there being no gatekeeping in Wikipedia, like I look up the early Soviets technology regarding radar and radar signals was very different to the U.S. and European radar technology because we used totally different views of how radar should work. Um, the Soviet technology relied heavily on um, uh, Nikola Tesla's. Uh, um, he called his torsion field theories, and the U.S. relied very heavily on standard run-of-the-mill radio wave theory that had been consistently relied on all the way from the 1880s. And so the two things they were both legitimate sciences. They were both being used, but the U.S. couldn't always adapt the Soviet technology that they were able to recover, and the same was true for the Soviets trying to adapt the U.S. technology. But if you go to about a couple years ago, I went to Wikipedia and I looked this kind of stuff up, and the Nikola Tesla information that Soviets had actually based their science on, for 50 years, was labeled as a pseudoscience and nonsense in Wikipedia. And I thought I would like to see, the 50,000 scientific studies published in peer-reviewed articles in the Soviet Union while they were using the technology would say differently. But William Reich is another good example, and there's several others. But anyway, yeah, you're exactly right. And
Mhm.
where the tail chasing comes from is I have seen articles that will quote different sources, and then when you go to those sources, and these articles were edited into updates in Wikipedia articles. But if you go to that original article and trace it back, it refers to something else. You go to that article, trace it refers to something else. Go back about three, and I found this once. It was just blew my mind. About 5 generations earlier, it was an article that was based on the original Wikipedia article that quoted the most recent article that was based on all these others that were based on the Wikipedia article.
So
So you
that's
just
so funny how it just
you
trails back to that article.
yeah, it's just so you gotta be careful when you look up these things. And honestly, with artists, you're not going to have those kind of issues, but it is important to be aware of biases.
Mhm.
Just and it's not bias just means that the person is making sometimes mostly unconscious decisions leaning towards a specific worldview, and it's not good or bad. It just that's what it is. So just be aware of that. Anyway, um, do you guys want to see another example of the, well, I'm going to show it to you anyway. So we'll look at this. And if these people see these things, I've tried to hide their name. If they see these things, feel free to go ahead and re-edit it. But I will, as with everything else, if you lose a couple points for something, just what I'm saying with the re-editing and resubmit it. You'll be fine. So the artist this person picked is Slinky. And the name of uh, the authorship of this is Artsy. It's probably a staff writer. So this is looking pretty good. Um, the only thing that concerns me about this is that there's no publication information. And sometimes on websites, internet articles, there isn't going to be a date for the publication. So this is something where I'd probably take off a couple points, just ask them to verify that. And when they wrote back and say, yeah, it's verified, I'll put the points back on. Okay. So they have the accessed on date. That looks just fine. We've got the first one talks about the source. Second one is a reflection. The source helped me better understand. That's excellent. So next one we have same kind of thing. Link it to your official website. The official artist websites, they're going to suck if you're trying to get publication dates. So this person may not have had access to them at all. And if there's if you are doing something where you don't have any publication dates and you're concerned about that, just okay, what I'm seeing here is this person was watching for publication dates. They did include it in this one, so my assumption is going to be that these two do not have them available. So okay, that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. It looks like the alphabetization is going pretty well. So we've got Raw Vision as the publisher, and we got the website there. Okay, accessed on, excellent. And it looks like they did a really good job with the alphabetization. Looks like it's a really good job with the citations. They got the accessed on right. I'm seeing that there's proper punctuation in the citations. Sometimes people will copy and paste citations when the citation machine that they used is not doing MLA punctuation, and you just need to double check for that. So this is looking really good. I like this. That turned out well. So basically, we've got two annotated bibliographies. The annotation means they're notes that you added on, and the bibliography is, of course, references to the material you cited. And what I'm seeing also is that most people are including like a video, at least one video link, and I think that's great. Please do that. I think one of the really good mixes would be an article from like an arts journal, uh, maybe a video from Art 21, and maybe a video with an interview of the artist. And then if the artist has a foundation, an article from their site, or one of the galleries that carry them, or a museum that carries their pieces, and then something else that's an opinion piece by somebody on them. I think those that would be a really good mix. What we don't want is all five of your sources are from gallery catalogs of exhibits that they've had, unless they're done very, very differently. One of the coolest gallery catalogs I've seen was all video, and that turned out pretty cool. So it just now that is one of the assignments, and that's the one that's due like this Sunday. And then a completely separate one is we go down to 7C, look right here. This is where we look at the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation. Now, I wanted to talk about this because a lot of people haven't done things like this before. And this is additional, it is separate from the annotated bibliography. And you can reference your annotated bibliography right off the bat, and that's absolutely fine. One way that I reference this is where for the PowerPoint presentation, I put together probably the minimum would be 7 slides. And it'd be the 7 slides. The first slide would be something that shows either an image of the artist or the art and their name. Then the next 5 slides, so through 2 through 6, would be a slide representing each of your 5 sources in whatever order you want that makes sense to you. Maybe a screen grab, a screenshot from a video, or maybe highlights from one of the articles, or images that you find online that are images that the articles used, different things like that. And then the last slide, slide 7, in this case, if we're doing the minimum, slide 7 would be a list of your 5 citations, exactly like what you did in the annotated bibliography. Alphabetical order and everything like that. And you can do this in a couple different ways. the simplest way, I've tried to do this where I've done a PowerPoint where I've tried to record the video. I can never get it to work. I don't know if it's because I have AVG antivirus on my system and it just doesn't let things work properly. Sometimes I have to turn that off when I do classes online with you guys because AVG just, they like to interfere with everything. But the simplest way that I found to do this is to make all my slides. Then I open that up, the PowerPoint presentation, open that up in another screen. And then if you go uh, Microsoft Education, this section, I'll show you what it looks like from my end. On your end, it's going to look different. But Microsoft Education does give you an opportunity. A lot of it, I believe it does, gives you an opportunity to start your own meeting. And if you do that, if you start your own meeting, then and record it, you can do a screen share for your open PowerPoint slides and just make a video of you talking about the PowerPoint slides and then switching through the PowerPoint slides as you're done talking about each one. And that's an incredibly easy way to do that. And then you have a video. And to access the video, if you go to meetings in this same Microsoft Education thing, you'll find this thing recordings. I believe you guys have access to this. And the recordings will have a recording that you just made. And if that's not the case, contact tech support and ask where it's recorded to, because they will help you find where it's recorded. And if Microsoft Education, that tab is not working for you like that, there are a number of different ways that you can use this. You can and on YouTube, there's several. I found like 15 different ways of recording your own PowerPoint presentation onto an MP4 or WAV or MP3, MP4 WAV or MOV file. And then after you download that file, then that's the file you upload for the assignment. Now, getting back to this. Now I'm saying all that so you don't have to show up on the screen at all when you do your PowerPoint presentation. If you write out a script, it doesn't even have to be your voice. Over the years, I have had people have their boyfriend, girlfriend, great uncle, great aunt, and even AI voices like Elmer Fudd. I think that was one of the coolest ones. Elmer Fudd read the script that somebody had written for their PowerPoint presentation, and it was great. So it needs to have 7 to 10 slides. The last slide has to have your citations in alphabetical order in the same way you cited them correctly for your annotated bibliography. And there is a time limit on this. So I say WAV, MOV, or MP4 file. And the time limit on this is, let's see, 5 to 7. Okay, it should be 5 to 7 minutes. And I had that in a previous version. I don't know if it's okay. We're going to double check and make sure that this says 5 to 7 minutes. 7 to 10 slides. Okay, I'm going to write this in. Okay, 5 to 7 minutes long. That should be plenty of time for you to cover everything you need to. And down here, I say 5 to 8 minutes right there. Yeah, we'll do 5 to 8 minutes. I did include that. I thought sometimes when I transfer things over, it misses everywhere that I had updated it, but this one does have it right here. Make the PowerPoint 5 to 8 minutes long, and it tells you the 3 different kind of file types that are appropriate. So we go all the way down to the bottom. Okay. All right, that looks good. I'm just double checking this. I don't want people to be confused. Keep your presentation under 10 minutes. I'm going to highlight that, and I'll tell you why. Okay, keep your presentation under 10 minutes. Okay, so we're gonna save that. Do you guys want to know why I make that a stipulation that you have to keep it under 10 minutes? I was doing
Easier to
this.
watch all of them.
Yeah, that's one.
You gotta
But
grade
the
them.
main one is just for me
Mhm.
because one of my classes, somebody just got back from New York, and when they were in New York, they saw a lot of their artist stuff, and their presentation became less about the artist and more about how cool it was that they got to go to New York and see all this stuff. And their presentation ended up being 33 minutes long.
Wow.
Yeah, and not well in a good way. So 5 to 8 minutes is the max that I want you guys to go.
Okay.
So again, I every semester there are people that have just social anxiety like I do and don't want to do this. And that's I've done this so that you don't have to be on camera. I don't want you to be on camera, but I also have done it so that you don't have to even use your own voice to do this presentation. Please double check before you turn it in, because one of the things that I've noticed that is kind of frustrating for people, every once in a while, if the system doesn't work correctly, it won't record your own voice. So just double check before you turn it in. And then I'm going to do my screen share again. As they get done and turned in, we will look at them as a class. We'll look at some of them. And it is going to show up here. And then playlists, there's a playlist that I have where self-critiques, peer critiques, and then artist PowerPoints for each semester. And so they'll appear in the artist PowerPoints for the current semester. Now, the peer and self-critiques, I also want to talk about those really quick here. And this is something to think about. Applying the tools of artistic critique, go down here. There's artistic critique, my own work, artistic critique, someone else's work. And we did talk a little bit about the tools of artistic critique last time. I want to mention them again. But when you do this, again, this is going to be 3 to 5 minutes long. Right here, it needs to be 3 to 5 minutes long. And what you're going to do is look at the artwork, if it's yours or somebody else's, and go through the 4 tools of artistic critique out loud as you look at this artwork. And you can do on this video, you'll have a screenshot of just the artwork. That's the only thing you're going to be sharing. And several people have written out their whole thing, timed it so it's 3 to 5 minutes long, and then had somebody else read it. And that's perfectly fine. So your voice does not have to be on the video if you don't want it. Do you guys remember the 4 tools of artistic critique?
Uh,
The first one starts with a D.
yes. Mm, Just
I just
no,
saw
it's
it on there.
oh, it's literally on the
Oh, is it on here?
Yeah.
describe, analyze, and interpret and evaluate.
Oh,
It's
wow.
right there. Yeah.
Mandy, you are
I
brilliant.
don't.
It's also pronounced Marty. I did know if you knew that.
What's
My name
that?
is pronounced Marty. My name is
Yeah.
pronounced Marty, like Mardi Gras.
Marty?
It's not
Okay, I'm
Mandy.
sorry.
No, you're good. You're
The
good.
script
I
is
didn't
really,
want to interrupt you, but I just wanted to
oh,
clarify.
it's
It's
Marty.
pronounced.
Okay. Because
Yeah, it's
the
Marty.
script is really tiny and my eyes were
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit blurry, so I
yeah.
saw Mandy.
I'm not blaming you. I'm just telling you how it's pronounced. So it's okay.
At least I didn't call Caleb Carrot.
Yeah, I think that would be funny.
My eyes are not. Oh well. Anyways, when it gets later on in the day, so anytime after 10 a.m., my eyes start going wonky.
I feel you there. I've got off of work not too long ago, so I'm probably in the same boat as you. So I've been up since like 7 this morning. So
Well, I'm
yeah,
glad you guys are so coherent tonight. So thank
yes,
you.
yeah, of course, of
Now,
course.
with when you guys do your artistic critiques, um, the best way to do this is to go through, don't ask the questions out loud, but answer them out loud. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So if I'm looking at something and I'm just going to pull up a piece of artwork. Okay. I'm going to pull up a Frida Kahlo painting. Okay, here we go. And I'm just going to go through that same kind of thing. So I have in front of me the different questions, and I may do my critique like looking at this painting. It looks to me like it's a painting of a woman in a white blouse, perhaps with a purple
Mhm.
shirt. There's four birds, two sitting on her, what I appear to be her wrists, and two on her shoulders. She is looking at the camera head on, or the viewer head on. It's almost confrontational. Only one of the parrots is looking head on, and the other three are all looking in different directions. There's a lot of caramel tones throughout, and the parrots look like they're pretty naturalistically rendered. Overall, the background has that kind of splotchy thing that is really popular with um, photo backgrounds. If you're old enough to remember when you went to a studio to get portraits done,
I
and
remember. I
for
remember.
the most part, she
It was
looks
usually blue.
like, yeah, like there were blue ones and purple ones for the
Yeah.
most. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what you would do for description. And for the rest of it, notice I didn't ask the questions, I just answered them out loud. You're going to do the same thing. Now, when you do this for somebody else's artwork, that is really easy to do. When you do it for your own artwork, this is going to be really difficult. And the reason why it's difficult for a lot of people is you know what you were thinking. And artists are perfectionists, even though that's an improper use of the term. Do you guys remember what the synonym for perfect is?
Um,
I believe
it's
complete.
Complete. Exact.
complete. Okay. Mhm.
So when as artists, we remember the things we learned as we were doing the piece. And we learn so quickly as we're putting down a brushstroke, we know what to do better next time if we're painting.
Mhm.
As we're
Yeah.
smearing the clay over here, we know exactly what to do next time. And so when you are critiquing your own work, you're going to feel like you need to be self-deprecating and talk about all the things that you could do better next time. Don't do that. This critique is not for anybody to say what I think this how this I think should be improved is by don't give advice for improvement. And when you are critiquing your own work, don't talk about how you could do it better next time. You're going to pretend that this is the first time you've ever seen it. And when you do that, if you keep yourself in that mind space where you clinically go through the four-step tools of artistic critique and apply it as if you've never seen this artwork before, even though you may have made it 6 hours earlier, when you do that, I guarantee you're going to see more and different things and recognize what you did that's worthwhile better than if you go through and are self-deprecating and talk about how you could improve it. Last semester, people in the class, many of them were sharing other classes where part of the critique in class in those other courses was to talk about how to improve stuff. I don't like doing that. I don't like people saying that. When I critique something, I will say that because I'm talking about how it relates to the assignment and the assignment parameters. I'm not talking about how to improve your art. I'm talking about how to get it closer to fill the assignment objectives. When you're doing it, you can't read other people's minds. And if I'm critiquing art that is not in relationship to a specific assignment, I can't read their minds. I may think something is specifically effective or not, but that's my perspective. I don't have the audacity or pride or narcissism to feel that my worldview invalidates the worldview of whoever made that. And so I'm not going to tell them how to correct it unless it's in relationship to the assignment parameters. So when you guys look at stuff, when you critique your own work or somebody else's work, I want you to look at it at a specific object with the assumption that that artist did everything you see completely on purpose. That's the way they wanted it to look. Okay, so you're not going to say, this is how to improve it. You might say, I really like all this, but this part here makes me uncomfortable. And I think it makes me uncomfortable because of these reasons. If it was mine, I'd probably do this. That is okay because you're not telling the artist how they can heal their worldview so it matches yours. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So as you now these artistic critiques, I'm going to share this again. These artist critiques, they're due July 17th, but and one of the reasons why, and I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, one of the reasons why everybody needs to put their stuff on our discussion boards is so that you guys have fodder to go through and pick stuff so that there's plenty of options for you to critique somebody else's work. And it must be work done by somebody in this class for this class this semester. So if it's your own work, it needs to be one of the things you make for one of the assignments in this class for this semester.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now I will tell you guys, if you guys get this done before June 30th, you will get extra credit. And as people do it, I will show you, I will share with you what they do so you guys can see that. Now I'm going to go to, do you guys have any questions so far?
Um, not at the moment, no.
Nope.
Okay.
None that I can none that I can't email about you or email you about later.
Okay.
Everything.
Okay. I'm thinking we'll look at the houses more
Okay.
in just a second. But before we do that, what I want to do is show you the two wire sculptures that people submitted. Now, as we were talking about this last week, we were talking about it needs to be like a three-dimensional scribble of a recognizable object, or at least something that you recognize, and it needs to be able to stand by itself. We talked about those things specifically. And I suggested very strongly that it's a really bad idea to do things like flowers because we're programmed so hard to make flowers flat. And it's very difficult to get them three-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
And so keep that in mind as we look at these things. And then after we look at them, we'll go back and look at some more of the house things if we have time. And Tuesday, we're going to look at more of the wire sculptures. But I want you guys to be aware of this. Kudos to the people that turned this in a little bit early. I'm hoping as many of these get turned in on Sunday as possible because then we'll have something to talk about on Wednesday. So. All right, so here we have, it appears to me that this is modeled after a teapot or a tea kettle. And there are some things that I like about this, and there's some things that I really like about it. One of the things that I like about it is it stands by itself. It's obvious it's made in three-dimensional space. And I like how the wires, the person did not try to make it look mechanically efficient. All the wires are a little wiggly, and that is fun to see. I like how, and then as we get into really like, I like how they did a couple of simple, they didn't use a lot of wire, but they did some simple things that adds interest to it. Like we have this open ring right here, and they've developed a visual rhythm with, single wires coming down and curling at the bottom of that. They've kind of played around with that rhythm a little bit by having a double line right here. And you see it's simple right here, and there's a little bit of something going on. Same thing over here. And then right here, they changed it up and they used the wire differently around here, where they have horizontal loops and that have sometimes extraneous little curly cues attached. Sometimes they're attached to these upright structures. But it just, with the lines not all being like clinically straight or mechanically straight, it feels whimsical and kind of fun. I like that. How do you guys respond to this piece?
It's very incredible. I kind of like it could be literally taken out of like a children's storybook kind of sketch. Like it's giving uh his name Roald Dahl, like the author that makes like the like BFG or like I feel like it's very picking that sort of vibe.
Yeah, like
From
James
it.
and the Giant Peach
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
illustration. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I was reading.
Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say I was getting kind of an air of fanciness with this particular pot. To me, it actually reminded me of Mrs. Potts from Beauty and the Beast, just because of like how intricate it is, and that's what I think is I'm really impressed by is how intricate this looks.
Hmm.
Well, and that's kind of funny too, because I was thinking of that too, Mrs. Potts, and I don't know, it's fun. It looks to me like the person enjoyed doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So, so excuse me, I was trying to get a little bit of a drink there,
Okay.
and of course I'm not coordinated enough to set it down so it doesn't spill. All right, so here's the next one that was turned in. And I'll tell you, there's some things that I really like about this, and there are some things that I think to fit the parameters of the assignment need to be changed a little bit. So one of the things I said about flowers was, don't do them because the propensity is to make them
Mm.
fall. And what this person did, I don't know if you can see this. You can't see it in the shadow. I think the shadows are fantastic. But what they've done is they made the flowers so that there's several layers stacked on top of each other. They're not flat.
Mm.
And I think that is very interesting to me. And
Yeah.
this, the leaves I think are really interesting too. One of the things that concern me though is this looks like it is leaning against the background as opposed to being able to stand on its own. And I think that this person, that one of the easy ways to fix that would be, you can't see the base, perhaps taking the wire of the base, maybe spinning these two stems together just a little bit right here so that they join up and have a little bit more strength. And then when we get down to the base, maybe making that into a loop so that this can stand by itself. And then rephotographing it like that with strong lighting so that the light goes onto the background. And I think that would work. That would fulfill those requirements and it would be a relatively simple fix. And they don't even need to twine the stems together up here. Maybe they could twine them together right here where the leaves come out. Pinch the wires together and twist these just a little bit so that they twist together right there. That would give it a little bit of a strength. And then further down, make it a loop and then take a photo of the whole thing standing by itself. Now, if they've used up all their wire, it is perfectly fine to use additional wire. You guys can do that. Or if they don't have additional wire or they don't want to go and get additional wire, you can get really cheap stuff. There's baling wire and carbonized wire, stuff like that at um, Harbor Freight, as well as Cal Ranch and those kinds of stores.
Okay.
But if none of those things work, like a chunk of wood with a hole drilled in it and shove the wire in that so it stands on its own, then that would be okay too. But it does need to stand on its own.
I've
So
actually got an idea for that, which
what's that?
is I'm wondering how cool would it be if they made a like a pot for it, like a wire pot to fit with the flower. That then it would stand on its own and it would still be very thematically appropriate.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I think that would add to the drama of the piece too. I think that would be very cool. That would be very neat.
Mhm.
And you guys can use different kinds of wire too. Um, one of the more interesting ones that I've seen is somebody used the wire to make a lot of little bees, kind of bee shapes
Hmm.
with open wings. And then they had some beading wire of different colors, and they just used that to wrap those bee wing areas a little bit so
Hmm.
that all these half a dozen bees that they had all had different colors wings, and they put the bees had made the bees at the end of like 12-inch long single stick wires, and to make it more three-dimensional, they twisted those together, put that into a wood block, and then just bent the wires that the bees were on at different angles, and it ended up looking really interesting. I think one of the least intriguing subjects that people can do is a tree. Now, all of us have been to like a Chinatown area in a market somewhere and seen these copper wire trees where they look really cool.
Mhm.
However, um, I encourage you as strongly as I can, do not go that route. Don't get a bunch of wire twisted into a trunk and then pull the wire out and do different stuff like that.
Yeah.
It You guys are worth so much more than that. Don't do it. If you want to
Mm.
make a tree, think about the runnels in the bark and use your wire to trace the runnels in the bark so that the trunk of the tree goes up and it has different vertical strands of wire as the outside of the bark. That can be really interesting, but don't twist a bunch of wire together to make it the trunk. Now I say that every semester. Well, actually, last semester was the only semester so far that one person in the class did not decide to do that, if not more. One semester about 3 years ago, out of a class of 15 people, I think 4 people made trees. I just, oh,
Mm.
sigh. Get you guys are better than that. One of the
Yeah.
one of the one of the coolest ones is somebody got a bunch of extra wire and they did a self-portrait where it was actually the shirt, and this person had big gauges in their ear. They had tattoos up to their jawline and all the way down to their knuckles on both hands, but they taught 5-year-olds at Sunday school. So they always had a wrist length shirt and a really nice tie that they wore. And so their self portrait out of wire was a life size shirt like that you could actually move the arms and you could move the tie, position the tie. It was so incredibly cool. But it took them this project should take you between 10 and 15 hours. That project took them about 40 hours. And
I would
it was so
imagine. I would imagine it would take that long,
now something like
especially if
that.
you want to move it.
Yeah, yeah. So you articulate it. Now, for something like that, it would seem only just that the person could take their extra points and give them to whoever they wanted in the class. But sadly, that's not the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now, you guys have not started on this project yet, right?
I've started working on sketches to get an
Okay, good.
idea of how I want to move the wire. And once I get like a good sketch that looks good and not wonky, I'm just also trying to make because but the sketches you kind of want it like a one line sketch, correct? Or is it just like a bunch of scribbles
I want you to
creating
think
like the
about,
image?
as you're making the sketch, think about what the
Hmm.
wire would do in a volume of space.
Okay.
So you can do, don't limit yourself necessarily to a contour drawing. You
Hmm.
saw that the sketches that I give in the example, They aren't all
Mhm.
contour drawings, because you can clip the
Yeah.
wire and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would say just play around with it, and
Okay.
and see if you can just pretend that you're working with the wire.
Mhm.
Um, and you may do a half a dozen sketches before you find something that turns out that you're happy with.
Yeah.
But these
Mhm.
Mhm.
I with the wire, I can't emphasize enough. Please get at least cheap gardening gloves to work with, and make sure you have
Mhm.
some sort of eye protection. And you can
Mhm.
get eye goggles. Marty, you don't need them, but
Okay.
because you and I are lucky enough to be born with glasses. But for those who aren't
Yeah.
that lucky, you can. Sorry, Caleb. But for those of you who aren't that lucky, I think Walmart and Harbor Freight both have them for like 250, 350, something like that. And definitely cheap gardening gloves. Dollar Tree has them for like $2.50, which I feel personally betrayed by. Dollar Tree should
Mm.
only sell stuff that's worth $1. Well, maybe it
Yeah.
still is worth $1, but they charge more.
They've been
They should only be
increasing the
charging
prices. It's like
$1.
$1.25 now. It's not exactly $1. It should be $1.25 store instead of
Yeah, and that it
$1.
just doesn't roll off the tongue, you
Yeah, it
know.
does not. It does not.
And you have to be careful too because like some of the toothpaste is now $5. So you just gotta, yeah, personally I feel betrayed. So, but
Yeah.
that's
Mm-hmm.
I'm still gonna go there. If I don't want my teeth anymore and I'm gonna rot them out, I will buy $10 worth of candy at Dollar Tree and just go through it like crazy. Um, I finally
Yeah.
got sick one too many times on a road trip, so I
Mm-hmm.
quit doing that. But
Mm-hmm.
my kids, when they would visit me, always knew that I had a big bag of Dollar Tree gummies in the fridge.
I mean,
Oh,
kids be stealing candy. That's I don't know.
well, and
That's
they were in
a
their
normal
20s.
thing. Oh, 20. I mean, even in your 20s, candy is still a must.
Oh
It's
yeah,
still a tempting
absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Now we have about 15 minutes left tonight. I
Okay.
want to, do you think you have a pretty good understanding of what we're looking for with the wire now?
Hmm. Yep.
Okay,
Hmm.
good. Now I'm going to go through and I want to look at each of the houses really quick that people have turned in. And on the discussion board, how many have you guys gone through the discussion board again and seen what people have done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I want you to
A lot
scroll
of
through,
people.
look at them, because you might find, even if you've already made your comments, go back through because several more people have turned houses in and just look at them and see if there's one that strikes your fancy for that artist review if you want to do it on a house. But again, the
Okay.
artist review, I don't, not the artist review, excuse me, the artist critique that you're going to be doing, the 3 to 5 minute
Hmm.
critique.
Yeah.
I don't care what item you do it on for the
Hmm.
items you do it on, except the restrictions are if for your critique, for the self critique, it has to be on something that you made for this class this semester.
Hmm.
And for somebody else's work, the peer critique, it needs to be for a piece of art somebody in this class made for this class this semester.
Okay.
So those two things are very important. And
Hmm.
Caleb, I know that that narrows it down for you because you've taken this class what, 8, 9 times?
Nine
I'm
times.
no, I'm kidding, Marty. This I'm
Okay.
kidding.
I mean, I want to. I've taken some math classes a few times, so you're not the only one that's taken a few classes. Again,
Well,
I've
and
taken art
Caleb
history
isn't.
twice too. So
I was just teasing.
yeah, yeah, I could tell. I could tell. I was just saying he's not alone in that taking the same class multiple times.
Right. So here's one, and I got to tell you a horror story.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
in the ancient days, way back. This is so long ago that word process, you have Word. At that time, word processing was done by a specially programmed computer that was in an electronic typewriter that you would hook up to your own TV. Okay, so this is a long time ago.
Hmm.
And dial-up internet and cassette tapes. were how we transferred information. So I was at BYU at the time, and BYU would give you in your student mail packet, and you had to pick up your mail every week. But the student mail packet would give you your schedule of when your finals were to be taken. And I remember opening this up on the first day of finals. Well, it was 2 days before the first day of finals, and finding out that I was scheduled for a final for a computer programming class that I had not remembered for the last 3 months. I had no recollection that I'd ever signed up for it. And that was horrifying to me because I am a perfectionist, a student. I can't stand or at the time. Now it's I'm a little bit better. Medication.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
at the time I could not stand getting an F for the class. And so I had to retake it. And when I retook
Mhm.
it, I wanted to prove to the teacher that I was not a loser. So I did every assignment like 6 times before I turned it in.
Oh my
I,
goodness.
my two older brothers were both one was a computer engineer, one was a computer security expert. And I relied super heavily on them to help me with my programs and everything. And it was an awful lot of extra time wasted on a class that I did not need to do that for. But I went from the lowest F in the history that the class had ever had to one of the best scores. So that made me feel a little better. So if
I
anybody
mean,
has to retake,
you wanted to prove your point. You definitely did that. Doing the
it made me
assignment
feel
six
so
times.
much better. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm looking at houses like this, and what I like to see is this is kind of a fun design, and I can see different visual texture. That's kind of fun. I love the lines. The roof, it's not quite a Dr. Seuss type roof, but it feels kind of like a fun semi-organic roof. And the house just feels like it was like whoever did it enjoyed doing it. And I'm just going to show these to you really fast as I go through. Let's see.
That's okay.
All right, here we go. Next one. This is another one that is just really fun to see because this person, you can argue, oh, well, that house isn't, there's not an awful lot going on. Well, yeah, but they drew all those bricks by hand, and the windows are with like that baking parchment kind of thing, and they have some
Hmm.
fun things that they put it in. So I think
Hmm.
that's pretty clever. This is a really fun one, and I love this kind of a thing where the artist paid a lot of attention to the texture there that would pick up the light. And it just makes it a lot more fun to photograph.
Hmm.
And I think these two photos really show how much light can change something. When you guys are in one of your classes and the teacher shows one of your works up on the board or up on the big screen in front of everybody, um, one of the tendencies we have is to be embarrassed or shy away from the fact that they're looking at our artwork.
Hmm.
But a lot of the times that uncomfortable shifting in the chair and that kind of, aversion of the eyes and stuff, that's the only clue that other people in the class have that it's your work. So
Yeah.
you guys are going to have to get used to the fact that you are going to receive compliments from people. That's something that you need to get used to. When somebody compliments you on your work, they are demonstrating their good taste. Don't, or please try very hard to resist the temptation to downplay their good taste by being self-deprecating. The better thing to do is to just tell them straight out, thank you, and be sincere about it because you are grateful that they know that they have good taste. And if you're in a class when somebody is showing your work on the screen, don't be embarrassed about it. Recognize, separate yourself from the fact that it's yours and recognize that it's good. You don't have to tell people, oh, yeah, I did that and it's the best thing ever. Don't do that. But saying thank you when somebody compliments you and appreciating that somebody liked it enough to go up there and not being embarrassed about it, those are both really good tools that you can have in your uh, social facing arsenal as a professional artist.
Mhm.
Now look at this. This is a really fun one to me. This feels we just got back from Hawaii. There's the Menehune, which are the Hawaiian little people. They live in houses, well, kind of like this, except with Hawaiian architecture. And
Mhm.
there's um, Holden folk in Iceland that live in houses like this. And this is just really, I love this kind of a thing. I think this turned out really well. It's just a fun little fairy house.
Mhm.
And I really enjoy that. All right, so we're going to look at another one. These are kind of fun. I like this house. It reminds me of some of the buildings that I've seen in other places I've lived in. Um,
Mhm.
and I love the simplicity of this. But one thing that I think is really kind of fun is this person painted this, so it's not just a flat color. There's some interesting stuff going on, and the frame around the window I think is really interesting, and I love the difference of perspective and difference of shots. Like the roof design, I think is really interesting. That's kind of a fun one. So that's something that I don't think we saw last time that
Mhm.
we use.
Mhm.
And this one I think is one of the most fun placements. This is one that we did see last time. I think
Mhm.
that was really an enjoyable one for me to see because it looks like the person enjoyed making this. And I think, Marty, did you enjoy making your house?
Yes, I did.
Fun for you?
I also was like, I don't know. Do you know Studio Ghibli?
Yes.
Um, so the house I is a little rendition of his like little cottage in like the flower scene where he's showing like Sophie the flowers. Basically, you see like his little cottage. That was kind of my inspiration for that, and I wanted to make like my own like mini version of that. So yeah, yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
One things like where you're hand painting it and
Hmm.
doing different things to it kind of show that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
No, I like the shape of this. This is kind of a fun one.
Hmm.
I really like this kind of detail. I think that's kind of fun. On this one, I think it would be more fun to if there was a little bit more detail on the roof and stuff, but I think they did a pretty good job. I think that's a fun one to
Yeah.
see.
Hmm.
Well, and this is the last house we're going to look at. This one I think was turned in that we looked at last time. I think that
Hmm.
this is a really, really interesting photo of the house. That's very cool.
Hmm.
Kind of a fun type of thing.
Yeah.
All righty. So do you guys have any questions about any of the stuff that we've looked at or talked about today?
Not really.
Okay. As we move forward, if there are things like confusing due dates and stuff like that, do the best you can. Let me know. I know that there are sometimes things that show up that where the link doesn't work or the image isn't showing up. Sometimes on the quizzes, I do have PDFs with images for all the images in the quizzes, and that's something that I wanted to point out. Um, every semester there are people that take the class that don't want to use access to the textbook. And there's also sometimes where it seems like people are trying to access the textbook, it's just not working. If you're one of those people where archive.net, or is it archive.org? Okay.
Yeah, I
If
think that's right.
archive.org is not cooperating with you, do the best you can. Take the quizzes when you're allowed on. If the library, like this semester, I know that 2 or 3 of you have been able to access the textbook from the library. They were able to scan copies of the chapters and send it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if but one person in the class was sent an email by the librarian that they contacted that said, "Oh, we can't do that," when I know that they can. And there's nothing I can do about that. I can't control that. Um, if one of you, oh, how can I say this? I will not ever encourage breaking copyright restrictions, ever.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody in one of my classes was having difficulty accessing the textbook, and somebody else in one of my classes happened to have the email scanned copies or scanned chapters that they needed to access. And it just so happens that, figuratively speaking, the first person happened to accidentally glance over the shoulder of the second person while that scanned copy happened to be open on their computer screen. That would really be, theoretically, a help to the individual that was having a hard time coming into the library. And exactly, Caleb. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there are ways of working around things. And in one of our discussions, if somebody's having a hard time, go ahead and post something. Hey, can anybody help me with this? In one of our discussions, and if anybody else can, that's awesome. That's great. Please try to. I
Mm-hmm.
know that there are 2 people in the class that find it very difficult to get to campus, or at least 2 people, I should say, and they may need help accessing um, these chapters and stuff. But I've also seen that there are some people in every semester. There are 2 or 3 people in the class that don't want to access the textbook at all, and so they will do Google searches or whatever search engine they want to use to find the answers. And in every quiz, a third to half of the answers are specifically targeted to the information in the textbook. All the information is found directly in the textbook, and some of them are targeted specifically to the textbook. One example of that is the lighting or the image of Abraham Lincoln. The textbook specifically talks about what he was trying to get funds for, and that's the correct answer.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is definition of a line. One of my favorite personal definitions of the line is a dot that went for a walk, but that's not what we're going for. The definition of the line is specific to the textbook for this class,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the only way you're going to get points for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you're doing a quiz and the answer doesn't make any sense, I will ask for clarification. How many times can you retake the quiz?
Uh, it it's limited, right?
Yeah, exactly. As
Yeah.
many times as you
Yeah.
want to.
Mm-hmm.
I have had somebody retake the quiz 3 times, and that's fine. And sometimes some of the people sometimes you'll have the textbook in front of you. You'll want to hurry through the quiz so you get a lot of the answers right out of the textbook and then guess on the others. That's not the way we're going to do it. You'll only get full credit if you use the answers that are found in the textbook. Another good example of that is um, the 7 unifying whatchajiggers. I forget what it's called. Let's see.
Uh, Involving the viewer or no?
Well, there's the 9 ways of involving the viewer,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are the let's see. 7 unifying principles of design.
Yeah.
And those are listed, they're listed across half a dozen to maybe 6 to 8 pages in the textbook, but they are very clearly said that it's under a super heading that is unifying principles of design. And the 7 ones I've talked about, each with examples and photos. That's where you find the correct list. If you use one search engine, it gives you a specific list of 7 that's different than that. If you use a different search engine, um, like Bing, gives you a list of 7 that are different than Google does. And depending on your AI that you use, each of them will give you slightly different. The only correct answer to that is the 7 that are listed in the textbook. So that's be aware of that as you take the quizzes. So
Okay.
So theoretically, if anybody was, needing to look over somebody else's theoretical shoulder to theoretically view a theoretical image of a theoretical chapter in a theoretical book, that would be awesome. All right, guys, thank you so much for another wonderful evening. It's been great having you in the class. Thank you very much. Any final observations or questions before we part ways?
No, not really.
All right,
Everything's
excellent.
been good. So
I am really appreciating your guys' sense of humor and positive outlook. Thank you so much. So, all right, folks, we will see you next Wednesday. Have a safe week and safe weekend.
Hey, you too. All right.
All right, we'll see you.
See you. Bye.
Bye.